Whether you're a new player or you've been around the game for quite some time, you may have experienced the most recent hero release alongside the Old Gods and New Blood update, featuring heroes like Graves, Celeste, Silver, Venator, Apollo, and Rem. But what if I told you that Deadlock is hiding 4 entire heroes that just vanished? I'm talking fully designed, fully tested characters. These heroes weren't just skins, they weren't just scrapped ideas, they were full characters that were actually playtested, and they completely removed them from the game. Maybe some of them were cut because they were broken, some were reworked into the heroes that you might already be playing, and one of them might still be coming back. So let's talk about the story of Deadlock's missing heroes, Raven, Trapper, Recker, and Slork. To understand where these heroes came from, you have to go back in time to an old Deadlock game mode called Hero Labs. This was a limited testing mode that ran in late 2024 into early 2025, and it basically let players peek behind the curtain of Deadlock's development. And we're not talking about polished, ready-to-ship heroes. Some of these characters had unfinished models, missing animations, even incomplete abilities, and in some cases, entire parts of their kits that just didn't exist yet. But that was the whole point. Heroes like Sinclair, Holiday, Calico, and Viper were initially tested in this game mode before being added to the game. Hero Labs was where the devs experimented, throwing out ideas, testing mechanics, and seeing what actually worked in a real match. And for the players, it was a rare chance to see the game in its rawest form, before everything got cleaned up, balanced, or even cut entirely. Which is exactly how these 4 heroes slipped through the cracks. And the first one that caught players' attention was Raven. Visually, Raven might have been one of the most striking heroes we ever saw in Hero Labs. Almost a James Bond type. His outfit leaned heavily into layered clothing with a long coat and sharp angular details that made his silhouette instantly recognizable. But the thing that really stood out with Raven was the umbrella. And if that sounds familiar, it should, because it gives off very similar vibes to Mina. That same kind of elegant, almost weaponized accessory that feels more dangerous than it looks. And it's not just for style, because it feels intentional. With Raven, the umbrella added a whole extra layer to his identity. His kit leaned heavily into the stealth archetype. Even in an unfinished state, you could tell there was a very clear vision behind him, which makes it even more surprising that a character with this much identity didn't make it into the final game. Raven had an ability called Blindside that would allow you to throw a concussion grenade that would reduce the enemy's turn rate. While this is an interesting idea for an ability, you can imagine how not fun it is if you're on the other side of this ability. He also had Umbrella Maneuver. Use your umbrella to catch a gust of wind that lifts you backwards. You then charge up your umbrella to fire a projectile that explodes on impact. Once again, there are some similarities here between Raven and Mina, with him using his umbrella as a part of one of his abilities. His ultimate was called Revelation. Activate your relic. Enemy heroes nearby have slowed movement and dashes, and receive damage over time when looking towards you. If enemies look at you long enough, they get cursed. This is a very unique idea for an ability, and we have not seen anything similar to this since. Raven could sneak up behind you and use his ultimate ability. At that point, you couldn't look back at him and fight him effectively without getting cursed. So overall, Raven did have some unique abilities that we have not seen in the game since. He was removed from Hero Labs in early 2025, and has since been fully scrapped and removed from the game. It's hard to say if parts of Raven's kit will ever come back to the game, or if the ideas behind his character have been reworked into a hero like Mina, but there was another character in Hero Labs that was even more annoying to fight than Raven, and that was Trapper. This hero was completely different from anything else in Deadlock at the time. Right away, the first thing you notice about Trapper is the spiders. There's this unsettling, almost creepy crawly theme built into his entire design that makes him stand out instantly. Trapper actually shared the same base model as Pocket during Hero Labs, so while the core character and face might look familiar, everything built around it, the theme, and the identity was completely different, and it really shows how early in development this version of the character was. Trapper's bio in-game actually gave us a little bit of insight into the character's lore. An employee of the New York Municipal Coven, Trapper spends his day building spirit urns, luring giant rats, and capturing various invasive species from the outer planes. It's not a particularly glamorous job, and he really hates working with spiders. In terms of inspiration, he feels like a classic trap-setting hunter. Trapper's first ability was called Silk Trap. You would create a thread of web between 2 surfaces. Enemies who touch the web are damaged and slowed. You may look at this ability and realize that it's very similar to an ability that Graves has. His ultimate was called Crawling Plague. Release a wave of spectral spiders that chase enemies, exploding and dealing spirit damage. Hit enemies are poisoned, temporarily losing spirit resist and spirit power. Once again, this ability is very similar to one that we actually have in the game now, and that's Page's ultimate, but also exploding and dealing spirit damage just like Graves' ghouls. This is a hero that the community strongly believes will not be returning to Deadlock. Most people believe that his abilities have been reworked and given to other new heroes like Page and Graves. The idea of Trapper as a character was just testing grounds for the developers to test these types of abilities, and I don't think we will see Trapper in this capacity added back to the game anytime soon. But it's a bit of a different story for this next hero, and that's Recker. At first glance, Recker doesn't look like your typical brawler type character. Instead of being this massive, bulky brute, his design actually leans way more into something futuristic, almost robotic. While his design was clearly unfinished, he's got these clean, segmented armor pieces, bright contrasting colors, and a helmet that completely hides his face. It all gives off this artificial, almost android-like feel, but there's also sort of a space vibe. The suit design and even the way the armor is structured, it all feels like it belongs in a sci-fi setting. In terms of inspiration, he feels like a blend between a futuristic soldier and a robotic enforcer. Within the Hero Labs game mode, Recker was using Paradox's model and gun, but his abilities is what made him stand out. And with a concept this different from the rest of the roster at the time, it's kind of surprising we never saw him make it past testing. Recker had an ability called Wrecking Ball, where you'd create a large ball of scrap that can be thrown, damaging and stunning anything it hits. The ball takes time to create, and you move slower while carrying it. The physics of the ball would act very similar to Holiday's barrels. It would carry its momentum if you threw it to the ground and roll in the direction you threw it. By far the most interesting part of Recker's kit was his ultimate. Astral Walk would allow you to launch a flying shadow copy of yourself that you control, teleporting your original body to wherever it lands. The teleport explosion would slow enemies and deal damage based on how long you were flying. The use case for this ultimate was very similar to Mirage's or Ivy's, with it being a global ultimate meant you could fly anywhere on the map, and allowed for some very interesting plays if coordinated with your team. The real answer for why this hero was scrapped may never be answered, whether it was the aesthetic of the character not matching the vibe of Deadlock, or the abilities not meshing well together. Recker was ultimately removed from Hero Labs and scrapped from the game entirely. It's of course possible that we could see some of Recker's abilities return with another hero in the future, but for now, Recker remains in the graveyard of scrapped Deadlock heroes. But for the next and final hero on this list, it's possible that we could see the return of this hero in their full form back to Deadlock. And that's everyone's favorite missing hero, Fathom, also known as Slork. Easily the most talked about and most remembered of the missing heroes on this list. Slork has one of the most unique silhouettes we've ever seen in Deadlock. The oversized shark helmet immediately grabs your attention. It's weird and odd looking, but at the same time it's incredibly memorable. He doesn't look bulky or powerful in a traditional sense, he looks agile, and the inspiration here is pretty clear. Slork feels heavily inspired by Slark from Dota 2. But what really sets Slork apart isn't just the design, it's the community's reaction. Because players loved this character. Even after being removed, Slork never really went away. People kept talking about him, making content about him, and asking where he went. And over time, he kind of became this unofficial fan favorite lost hero of Deadlock. And that's where things get interesting. There have been leaks, hints, and small bits of information suggesting that he might still be in development in some form. And if that's true, we could see Slork return to the game in the future in some fashion. Some heroes even have voice lines referencing him.
I have my eyes on you, Fathom.
Enjoy your hunt, Fathom.
Hey, Jelly Dust, keep on slorkin'.
Keep slorkin'.
Psst. Keep slorkin'.
Slork's most iconic ability is probably Reef Dweller Harpoon. Throw a harpoon that latches to a surface and pulls you in. While hanging attached to the harpoon surface, you are invisible and invulnerable. Enemies that look directly at Fathom reveal the invisibility. While out of combat and hidden on the minimap, you heal for a portion of your max health every second. Interestingly enough, we actually had an update recently that introduced a new hero called Test Hero. This hero currently uses Calico's model, but has an interesting ability called Wall Cling. And Wall Cling sounds eerily familiar to this Reef Dweller Harpoon ability. So whether or not Slork is returning to the game is still up in the air. But if he were to return, the community would be more than happy. And now I ask the question of which of these heroes would you like to see return to Deadlock the most? As I say at the end of all of my videos, Deadlock is going to continue to grow in 2026, so make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any Deadlock news and updates and videos like this in the future. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Later.